All right. So I may have forgotten to post the link so people can join us, but at least I can do is record it and give something to upload for people to watch. So, all right. Welcome to Wapiti Wednesday. So, apologize for the link getting delayed. I logged in this morning to Patreon and got everything going. And normally when I do this each morning, I'll open Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon and kind of get the posts kind of all ready to go. And I don't know, Patreon kind of changed their layout. And so I don't know if I forgot to hit publish now or what, but I started the meeting and was sitting here, and at about 7:34, nobody was joining me. And then I jumped over to Patreon and was scrambling to get the post, and a message from Sandy popped in saying, "Hey, I don't see the link." And so it's like, really, it's on there now. So, but yeah, so I don't know what happened. So we'll make sure on the next one. So apologize for the miscommunication, but tonight we're going to talk a little bit about summer scouting. That's one thing. Sandy and I were kind of sitting here talking a little bit. We've been out 5-6 weeks up in the mountains. The last 3 weeks have actually been going out and doing scouting. So far, we are up to 12 different bulls and 6 bucks in our area. And this past weekend actually had a collared buck. I have never seen a collared buck out in the wild. He's only going to be a 2-point, but I'm halfway tempted to go find him during deer season just because I want to know the information of that collar. And I've never had that opportunity before. So, another cool thing about this past weekend, Liz and I took the e-bikes up one of the motorcycle trails that we have in our area, and it leads up into a drainage that I have looked at on the map quite a bit. Bryce and Brandon and I started hiking into it 2 years ago on an evening hunt. Didn't make it that far up in just because of time. So this weekend, Liz and I actually rode up in there because I really wanted to check some of these areas out. And it was cool because on the way in, we actually rode right up on a spike that was feeding. We rode to within 25 yards of them. Would have been really cool if it was hunting season. Could have easily gotten off the bike, taken the bow off the pack, and let him feed out in the open, which he did, and would have been pretty easy. But was really cool. Got in there, saw a lot of old sign, and actually found an old access road that actually goes right up into the dark timber that I've been looking at on the map. So it made it kind of nice for hiking in. Started going in there, and I really wanted to explore this area. But as soon as I got in there with the amount of sign that I saw with the elk that are living in there right now, plus the edge of it that I saw with old rutting activity, I'm like, I'm not going any farther. I want to keep these guys in their pattern. I don't want to bump them. So we backed back out, and I've pretty much told myself first morning, that's where I'm going to be opening morning. So summertime scouting, what kind of info can it give you, and how can you take that info to up your odds, this September? Summertime scouting is one of those things that you can get out and really explore your hunting area, and you can learn a lot more because we are creatures of habit, and we do end up going to the same places over and over and over again. And that's kind of where we've fallen into. We have, 5 or 6 places that we really like to go. But I wanted to learn more because last year we went to the north a little bit to expand the hunting area, and we got into some elk. And one evening got into a group of bulls that were bugling, and the big guy was just heading up top. And I didn't really think anything about it, but he never came back. So, and there was quite a few other people that were kind of hunting the space where they were on. And I think this evening, he had enough. He'd had enough with the people. He hadn't had enough with the pressure. And so just went over the top. And I had kind of looked at Onyx a little bit, when I got home, and, trying to figure out, okay, where did he go? And I thought we knew where he was going. We drove around in the trucks and hunted this little bench basin on the other side. And it wasn't until I got the e-bikes that I really started looking at this motorcycle trail series that I found a little hidden basin on the backside there that if somebody was to hike into it, there's 2 trails that go close to this basin. One is about 3.75 miles and the other is 5.2 miles. And you have roughly about 900 feet in elevation climb in that jaunt. which most people aren't going to hike into. And that is a pretty good hike and elevation climb to get in there and then get something out. Now with the e-bikes in the back pocket, that's an hour ride to get in there. And really you have pedal assist. And so you're saving a lot of your hiking energy. So summertime scouting, this is one of those things that now we know an area where when elk get pressured, where they go, where's the hidden pocket that they go to. It may not be something that's good early in the year because it has to run its course with people pushing them off those other areas into there. But that's one of the things that summertime scouting now gives us the information that if we're hunting on that face and all of a sudden the elk disappear, we know exactly where they're going to, and we know how to get there quickly. And the nice thing is with the e-bikes is we're going to access that faster than anybody even trying to hike into it. So the other thing that it's given is it'll expand your hunt area. And in fact, I made a post about it yesterday and somebody asked what my goals were when I'm summertime scouting. And my goal during summertime scouting is, one, to expand the knowledge of the area that I'm hunting, get to know it better. It's a great time that if you do have one of those favorite areas, try different avenues getting into it. You may find a path that is quicker than the way you normally go into it. And it may give you an access point where you have a lot better thermals coming into it and you don't have to worry about boogering the elk out. That's one of those things when trying to learn it during September is a little tough, because if you do it wrong, there's a chance that you can blow the elk out of that area. Where summertime scouting, it's far enough between now and season that if you do bump something, it's going to be okay. So, because you're not in there every single day, there's not people in there every single day dropping scent and constantly pushing them. So you're going to be really good, safe bet that they are going to be back into that area come September. But summertime's a great time to learn those different paths. And then the other thing that my goal always is also to find little pockets and gems that maybe other people are overlooking or don't know about. And so especially on public land, if you can find those are golden. So because you can get into areas where there's a lot of elk that aren't pressured, that aren't being hammered every day. And you have kind of this undivided attention from the elk because you are going in and doing, these breeding sequences and this and that, and they can be highly, highly productive. And, you guys have heard me talk about some of the ones that I have found in the past that are 200 yards off a main road that people just, drive by. And that's kind of my goal this summer is learn, some of these other pockets that have looked at and we've, thought about, okay, how can we get in there? And it's like, man, but that's a 4-mile hike with 1,000 feet in elevation change. And man, by the time we hike in there, it's going to take us, 2.5 hours, 3 hours to hike in there. Then, to hunt that all day long and then try to pack something out. And if we have to make multiple trips and so kind of looking forward to this fall with the addition of the e-bikes, because it's really going to open up and access a lot of those areas that we may not have looked at before because of the hiking into. We also have talked about, going into those areas and setting spike camps and, hunting those areas for a weekend. Not last weekend, but weekend before, we hiked up one of the motorcycle trails that we do hike up into a basin that we really like to hunt. And we took a little bit different path. We kind of took the path of the way we come out of it. And as soon as we got up onto this little ridge and just looked over, it was awesome because it was kind of cloudy as we were hiking up. We kind of got into the clouds. And as soon as we got up to this little ridge to be able to look down in there, the clouds kind of opened up a little bit and the ceiling went a little bit higher so we could actually see down in there. And we probably sat there for a good 45 minutes to an hour and just glassed up elk after elk in the basin, which we think is really cool. And that's one thing Bryce and I were talking about was, man, we could we could take the e-bikes and zip right up onto this ridge, and you bring a little folding lawn chair and just sit here all day and glass that thing and watch the elk and really learn. And that was another cool thing that I learned when we did that is this little drainage, well, I wouldn't call it a drainage, it's a pretty good little basin drainage, but there's about 7 to 8 different bowls in there, and we absolutely love it. But there's one big bowl from the north that he always pops out on this little rock cliff and works his way across the cliff into some timber and then walks down, gets water, and then comes back out on that little cliff and then disappears. And always we've been down on the bottom and looking up at that, and it's like, where the heck does he go? Because if you're looking at it, it looks like it's all buck brush, and it's like, God, he can't be bedded down in that buck brush. He must be going over the top or this or that. Actually, no. Walked around the point and found out that there's a long strip of timber patch and a little depression that you can't even see from the other side. So again, another little hidey hole that most people can't see unless you walk over to this specific knob and walk around the knob. So those are, and of course I'm looking for the old rutting sign. I'm looking for the rubs, the old wallows, signs that this is where they are at during September. Cool thing was we've seen a lot of animals. We've seen a lot of tracks. We've probably seen more animals so far this year than we usually do combined all summer long. And I think part of that is because we are branching out into some of these other areas and really learning to, learn our hunting area a lot better, getting to different vantage points. So, all right. Any questions, comments, or concerns so far?
No, I don't have any questions. I've got I have a guy that's spending the whole summer up where we're going.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's what he's doing. I told him, I showed him where we went, what we're doing, going the same area. And that's all he does.
Good.
But it's like a 4.5 hour drive, 4.5, 5 hours to get where we're going. So
then if he's spending all that time up there, he should basically have one tied to a tree for you by the time you get there.
That's what he said. I could use that line.
Yeah. Get one tied to a tree. So
yeah. Actually, I lied to you last week. Last time about that Steve Chappelle.
Yeah.
It was the trophy wife that I have.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's got a clear front.
Yeah.
And the back, the tube is black.
Yep.
I knew it was clear. So that's the one I have.
And you saw that I posted that younger.
At it. Yeah.
Yeah. That younger has a really, really soft tone to it. And in fact, since we had our last Q&A, I filmed all of the cow vocalizations on external reed cow calls. I even did a bit on calf sounds with externals. And in fact, that reminded me, I need to go back to diaphragms and do a chapter on calf sounds. This past weekend, I did all the bull vocalizations on external reed bugles. And so now it's to the point to start doing, setups and calling sequences. And that's one of the things that I decided I'm going to do on the calling sequences is I'm going to do 2 videos on each calling sequence. One's going to be just diaphragm. The other one's going to be just all externals. So that way, it's really teaching both sides and both avenues of everything. And then, talk about how you can, mix all those. So it's coming together. So 12, 24, 36, 47 videos right now between the intro and just vocalization sounds. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So when are you raffling off or giving away one of those e-bikes so I can ride in style?
What's funny, I actually do have a raffle that I was going to announce tonight.
Really?
Yes.
Funny.
You know, Jim, I think you and I have pretty good odds right now.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
so, yeah. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to start it. So, yeah, I am going to raffle off a brand new 2022 Prime Inline 5 bow.
Wow.
So, it's going to be 100 slots, $20 per slot. You get to choose your number. You can choose as many numbers as you want. First come, first serves on the numbers, and as soon as we fill the 100 slots, we'll spin the wheel, and one lucky person is going to get a brand new Prime Inline 5, and it does actually have the Limb Driver G7X rest on it. So basically it'll show up on somebody's door, and all they got to do is slap a sight on it and stabilizer and make sure draw length is set right, and they got a new bow.
Wow, that's pretty slick.
In fact, last time I did this, it was funny. A couple of people, there was a couple of people that bought 10, 15 numbers, and the guy that ended up winning it bought one. So he spent $20 and got $1,000 bow. So yeah, I'm going to go live on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and announce that and get that going. So, all right. So summertime scouting, it's kind of getting to that point. I will make a couple of more trips in to a couple of new places. Kind of starting about the middle of July, I stop really going in and beat feet in the ground. And that's when I really turn to glassing and using the glass to do a lot of scouting for me. Just because it's, middle of July, towards the end of July, first part of August, you really start where everything is shut off to the blood supply on the velvet. And so those bachelor groups kind of start getting hard horn, starting getting pesky. And then 1st of August, middle of August, they're kind of starting to establish their pecking order. And so I try to stay out of a lot of those areas, because again, I want to keep them in their normal natural pattern as much as possible. Now, the key to glassing, especially if you have the ability that if you have multiple points that you can glass from, the thing I really like to do is in the mornings, I like to face west or northwest or southwest and glass, just because the sun's at my back at that time. And then in the evening, I'll flip it. In the evening, I will look east and northeast. So it's just the opposite. So morning, it's west and southwest. Evening time, it's north, or it's east and northeast. So the reason is the sun is always going to be at your back on those indications. So you're not having to fight the glare of the sun. But the other nice thing is too, if you're looking across the canyon with your sun at the back, it's amazing how that sun bounces off the shiny sides of elk and helps you see them really, really well. So that's just kind of a glassing tip. The other glassing tip that I do, and a lot of people glass improperly. And what I mean by that is they will glass the same way that we read a book. They will go left to right, top to bottom when they're glassing. But if you ever think about it, when you're reading, you don't really read every single word when you're reading a book. Your mind is programmed that it will skip over words, because just how our brain works and the way we understand the English language, we interpret. In fact, in a lot of words, we may only look at the first 2 to 3 letters of a word, and our brain automatically, it's almost like if you're typing on your phone and you're typing a text or something, and it kind of auto populates what it thinks the word that you're typing. Our brain does the same thing when we're reading. So when you're glassing, you want to do the opposite. So if you're glassing a big area, you want to break it into grids. So say I've got a big area and I've got it broken into 4 grids. I'm going to start in that bottom right grid, and I'm going to go right to left, bottom to top when I glass. And so I'm going to go bottom right, top right, bottom left, top left. So it's completely opposite of what we do when we're reading. But the thing is you don't skip things. You don't miss things. Where the traditional left to right, there's a good chance that you can skip over little pockets or skip over little things. And I never really, in fact, it was a buddy of mine that a couple of years ago, we were talking about scouting and glassing, and he brought that up in the discussion. And I was like, man, I've never thought about that. And he goes, nobody really does. And now since I've talked to him and we've had that conversation, man, I really paid attention. And yeah, you will, when you're going left to right, all of a sudden you'll see something kind of out of the peripheral and you'll jump over to that. But if you do the opposite, right to left, bottom to top, you're actually more disciplined, that you actually glass areas a lot more in depth and you pick up a heck of a lot more. So trail cameras, that's the only way that I will go in and swap. But I normally have trail cameras on travel corridors, heading to bedding areas, and on wallows. I don't put cameras right in bedding areas just because I don't want to go in those bedding areas during the summer. And the thing I do with my cameras is I have all of my cameras numbered, and I have 2 memory cards per camera, and each memory card is numbered in correlation to the trail camera. Now, when I set a trail camera, like the one I just set last weekend, I took camera number 3 out. And so when I set that and I dropped my pin on Onyx, I used the trail cam icon and I just numbered it 3-22. So I know I put camera number 3 in 2022. So I know when I put that. Now, when it's time to go in, and I'll normally let them set for 3 to 4 weeks before I go in and check. And me checking a trail camera is basically just going in and swapping those cards out. I don't look at the card there. I want to spend as little amount of time as possible in there. So I'll swap that card out. And plus, the summertime and the heat gets up, I don't want to be hiking when it's hot. I want to be sitting in camp looking at pictures on my laptop, drinking a beer. I mean, yeah. or playing horseshoes or, something like that during the heat of the day. But it's kind of nice because then when I pop in card number 3 or card number 4, I know exactly which camera that came off of. And so that will kind of tell me, okay, this is what's coming on this camera. And if I have other cameras that are kind of close, so say I've got a cluster of 4 cameras in a drainage, but cameras 2 and 4 are producing good amount of pictures, but 1 and 2 aren't really producing, I will move 1 and 2 closer to 2 and 4, maybe farther down that trail. Maybe that trail branches out and there's 3 forks. Okay, I'm going to put a camera on those forks because I want to know exactly which trails. But the cool thing is too, by studying those photos, is you establish travel routes and direction. And you will know whether it's a morning or an evening because hopefully you're setting your clock and date and everything on the timer. And so that way, when you're looking at those pictures, and you can tell, hey, it's in the morning, it's 6:48, and I've got a group of elk that's coming from the right to the left on this camera. But then in the evening at 7:25, now they're coming from left to right. So now that immediately tells me, okay, in the morning, their feeding area is somewhere off to the right, their bedding area is somewhere off to the left. And then in the evening, it's vice versa because they're coming from bedding to feeding. That's where you can also use those cameras to move up to the left or over to the right and start narrowing down those bedding areas and feeding areas because you've already established the travel corridors. You know which way they're going in the morning. You know which way they're going in the evening. Now use those other cameras that you have in the area to expand on that trail or expand on that travel corridor and give you even more information about their feeding area and their bedding area. So again, this is going to be information come September time I know where they're at in the morning. I know where they're at in the evening. I know the path that they take. I know kind of what time during the day. And I'll leave my cameras all the way up until season starts. As soon as season starts, I pull them. I do not leave my cameras out during hunting season because I don't want to run in and have to change cards or this or that. Plus, it's public ground. You have a lot of people hitting public ground, and there's a chance that they're going to find your camera. They're either going to take your camera or take your memory card, and then they're going to know exactly what's there. So I will pull it opening weekend. So by the end of opening weekend, all my cameras are off the mountain. So, but this is all valuable information so all the information we're getting here from summer scouting is we're learning travel corridors. We're locating feeding areas. We're locating bedding areas. We're locating areas where they go when they're pressured because of information that we had the prior season. And we're also finding new rutting areas that could be a different group of elk that, again, may be a group of elk that nobody's going in and hunting because it's an area that, and sometimes it's so blatantly obvious that you will look at this area and you'll go, there's no way I'm going in there. It's too easy access. I'm sure everybody and their dog is hitting it. But guess what? Everybody that's hunting that area is thinking the same exact thing that you are. Too many people not going in there. Those elk are going to be pressured. And it's crazy because you end up finding out that nobody goes into those blatantly obvious areas. And we have one of those also that it's not a very big chunk of public ground that's completely surrounded by private, but it does have a Forest Service road that you can get close to it, and you are parking on public, and then you're walking down that Forest Service road through the private, which is legal because that is a Forest Service road, to access public property on the other side. There are camps just on the other side of the little ridge that I'm sure they hear elk bugle, but I'm sure these people sit there in that camp and think, oh, that's just all those elk on that public ground. We can't hunt there. They don't know that there's a little chunk of public in there that they can. They think it's all private. And we've been in there the last few years, and there's multiple bulls in there. And we have never seen a single person in there. But it's also one of those things that when we do get an elk on the ground, we don't bring them out until it's pitch black. We don't bring them out until it's dark.
Yeah, so no one can see you doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the key with these little hidden gems, little hidden pockets. You have to get a little bit sneaky when you do bring something out, because you don't want people seeing you.
You're putting a red flag up. Oh, they're in there.
Oh, they are. And of course, you'll have those guys that if you are doing it, they'll stop and, where'd you get him at? Right behind the shoulder, actually. It was a good shot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you where I got him at, but if you do just a little bit of due diligence, you're going to figure it out. So that's kind of summertime scouting and all the things that I'm looking for and all the information that it can produce. And I know not everybody has the ability to access, their hunting area. Jim, like you said, it's 4.5 hour drive, which, that's a pretty good drive.
The good news is the same place as last year.
Yeah.
Everybody up there. And the other thing is sad is we had this conversation before. We can't use cameras here anymore. So.
Yeah. And, like we talked about last, I'm kind of either way on it. There's actually some years where I don't even put out trail cameras.
I don't even care anymore because it's raining. It started raining up there. It's actually started raining here. So there's a good storm with that. So there's going to be footprints all over the place now. So
yeah. Huh. Hear that, Sandy? It started raining on them. Kind of sounds like your adventure last weekend.
Yeah, it's kind of
weird. Yeah. I'm glad to have the rain out here. It's wonderful. But
where are you at?
I'm in Eastern Washington.
Oh, okay.
But it's been dry, and last year was really dry. And if you could find a water source, you could have been in luck. But I don't know. I think this year it's going to be really wet and a lot more feed. So, that changes conditions a little bit, but I'm just hoping that the elk will stick where I found them this year, and fingers crossed I'll actually get lucky finally.
Well, and nice thing is those elk are in a location that you ran into them last year during season. And
Right.
So, now, you were out last weekend and they're there again. And so that basically, tells you that's a local herd. They're in there all year round, minus the months that it's buried in snow and they're down on the winter grounds. So, and you'll get that. You'll get some areas where they don't travel very far. I mean, other areas. I've got a buddy in Utah that, I mean, he's a fanatic with trail cameras, and he's a fanatic of studying elk, and he actually has one bull that kept showing up on his trail camera year after year after year, but then would just disappear when hunting season came around. And so finally one year he's like, you know what, I'm going to figure out what this dude's doing. And he ended up finding this bull 5.5 miles away from where he summers. From where he summers to where he ruts was 5.5 miles away.
Wow.
And then as soon as the rut was done, he disappeared. Guess where he was? Back over in the summer area, 5.5 miles away. So our area, Sandy, it's a lot like yours. We got a lot of local elk. So, the bulls hang up in the higher, meadows and basins, getting away from everything. The cows are all, down low, which was kind of surprising, because we've got a couple of, oh man, my mind just drew a blank. Hold on. Hot springs. There we go. We got a couple of hot springs up there, and one of them's on private property. And the last 2 weekends, Liz and I have been driving down there about 7:30 and just sitting there seeing what comes in. And the very first group of elk that came in was a bachelor group of 4 different bulls. And I was like, what are you guys doing hanging out this low? And those 4 guys came in and just kind of frolicked around a little bit, and then went back up in the timber. And then after that, it was all cows and spikes and, typical what you see kind of hanging out, down on the lower area. But it's kind of cool. Every single night, Friday and Saturday, the last 2 weekends, we've gone down there, and yeah, there's been deer and elk coming in each night. There's a moose that frequents in there. And so it's just kind of cool to kind of end the day, as the sun's going down, and go down there and watch them come in. So, but yeah, it's just all local. And so we definitely know where the bulls hang out. We know typically, where the cows are during the summer. And it's really weird too, because we haven't seen in fact, we haven't seen a single calf yet. And we've only seen one fawn, but we know they're there. But those fawns and calves just stay up in the brush as the cows come down, cross the road, and come down into this. It's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on summertime scouting, or any other information or tidbits you can find?
Well, we're going to have an interesting year this year, because we had a really dry winter. Mm-hmm. But the monsoon here is already ramping up, and usually it doesn't do it till next month.
Yeah.
And meeting up there, and last year we had the same thing, at a dry winter. And last year in Tucson, we had 30 inches of rain.
Oh wow.
Monsoon last year.
Wow.
Crazy. So it was really wet up there. So it's probably going to change. There'll probably be a lot of food, but yeah. I don't know about water holes, because when it rains like that, if you have a divot in the rock.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's what we found this year, because last year was a drier year. Last year, we were in a second year El Nino pattern, which typically a second year of an El Nino pattern is a drier year. And we did have a drier year. Feed was a little more concentrated. And this past winter that we just came out of, that was the second year of the El Nino. And it, we had decent snow, but in March, everything was sitting any 75% to maybe 90% of average. But then all of a sudden, April and May and June came, and some of our areas, like the area I hunt, ended up 1,827% above normal moisture content between snow and rain. And I mean, there is a ton of feed out there. And so what that's going to correlate to this September is it means the elk are going to be spread out more. So, because when you have a drier year, concentrated food, the elk are concentrated. When you have a wetter year with more food, the elk are spread out more, which basically means it's going to be the opportunity that almost everywhere you go, you're going to run into elk just because they are so spread out. But it also makes it nice too, because you're not dealing with these big super herds and you have smaller bunches, which means less eyes, which means if you bump a group, it's okay because you can go 500-600 yards over and you're going to find another group of elk. And so basically you can make mistake after mistake after mistake and still find other opportunities. I think it's going to be a great year, just on the sign and that I've been seeing so far. Plus with the e-bikes, getting really, really excited. And yes, Sandy, to answer your question, I will call Dave and Brian and see what we could put together.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Good boy, Sandy.
Yeah. So no, I'll tell you what, it's and I've had a lot of people that they want to. In fact, I was talking to somebody today because of the picture that I posted, and they were like, "Man, those bikes are spendy." I said, "Okay, well, a brand new motorcycle is $8,900. Those bikes are $6,200. Plus, you don't have to pay for gas at $6 a gallon." But the big advantage is the quietness, how quiet you can slip in. You're riding down a trail, you hear a bull crack off a bugle, and your plans adjust. You can pull the bike off the trail, lock it up, and off you go. But the person I was talking to today it's like, well, I've been looking at this other brand over here and they're only 3,000. Okay. You're not comparing apples to apples.
You got a battery problem there.
Well, no, it's not a battery problem. It's the motor. So because within e-bikes, you have two different types of motor. You have a mid-drive motor, which is where the pedals are and the crank on it, or you have a hub motor where the hub motor is actually in the rear wheel. The problem is the hub motor is not as strong as a mid-drive. And so you try to take a hub-driven e-bike into a mountainous territory, you're going to tear that motor up. You're going to eat it up. It's just not capable. And so that's what I was kind of talking to him about is you have different motors in these. And the company he mentioned, I said, well, they do have a mid-drive, just like the Baku does. And their mid-drive bike is the same price as the Baku. So that's the thing. If you guys ever start looking at e-bikes, really, you got to make sure on the motor. And that's what you're paying for basically is the motor, which makes a huge difference. Because a lot of those hub drive motors are plastic on metal gears. And so I'm sure you can only guess what'll happen with a plastic geared motor and really rugged terrain. So where the mid drives are metal on metal.
And in good luck, if something happens to it, like if a battery or something does go bad, pedaling that 75, 80 pound bike out with yourself and all your gear on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Without the motor.
That's why you go uphill in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. My adage always has been hunt up, pack down. So with the e-bikes, it's ride up, coast down.
Yeah, there you go.
In fact, I was talking to Bryce about that, the area we rode into this weekend. I told him, I said, this was a short enough ride, Bryce, that you would not even have to pedal that e-bike because they have a throttle on them too. I said, you could just press that throttle down for any incline. He goes, what on earth makes you think I was going to pedal on the incline anyways? I was just going to be using that throttle. I said, well, then you can eat a bunch of your battery on the way in and everything's downhill and you can just coast on the way back down. So not a big deal. So perfect. All right, guys. Well, there is summer scouting tips and information that you can find. So appreciate you guys jumping on tonight. Again, apologize for the snafu on the post. So those of you that are watching this on the replay, that's on me. I promise in 2 weeks, I will make sure that the post actually does publish before I actually walk away from the computer in the morning. And I will make sure to send out the reminder email, which I was going to do tonight, but time slipped away from me. So that way we will make sure. What's that?
That threw me off too. I didn't have a reminder. I was like, well, maybe, something happened.
I know. I just really just dropped the ball big time on this one tonight.
You know what they say, better late than never. So there you go.
Exactly. So, all right, guys. Well, as always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, they'll have fun. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. And have a safe and happy 4th of July, everyone.
You too.
All right. See you guys later.
Mike.